last video, I completed the book block of the rounded and backed cased book. In this video, I was hoping to finish the case. The finished video was over 30 minutes long, which is too long, so I've broken it into parts A and B. In part A, I'll cut the boards to size, mark them up for covering, and cut the covering materials to size. In part B, I'll put it all together. And I've got a treat for all the people who like it when something goes wrong. Well, not exactly to plan, anyway. I'll start by truing up a long edge and one end at a right angle on each board. I use a repeatable method for cutting board, and I've made a video about this. I'll still describe most of it now, but for all the details, check out the other video. Once I have two edges true, I need to cut the boards to height. I'm using 3mm or 1/8 of an inch squares, the square being the part of the board that extends past the edge of the book block. I push the board into the shoulder and adjust the square to 3mm on the trued end. I then use my knife to mark the 3mm square at the other end. For a book to sit square, the front and back boards need to be the same height, even if the book block is uneven. So I cut the second board to the height of the first. I use my knife to make cut marks and not a pencil. It's much more accurate. Once I've done the height, I do the width. Again, I put the board in position and mark the 3mm square. Some people like a slightly larger 4-edge square, and 4mm looks good on a book this size. It's very hard to get perfect squares. A slightly larger 4-edge square will make any slight variations in square size less noticeable. The width of the boards does not affect how the book operates or sits on the shelf. If you were rebinding a book that was not a uniform width, you could mark the square at the head and tail to match the shape of the book, and you could match the second board to the book too. But once I've cut the first board, I check it fits the other side, and since it does, I cut the second board to the same width. In book catalogues, you'll often see books listed as quarter or half bindings. What this is describing is not the binding, but the covering style. In a quarter binding, about 1/4 of the cover is covered by the spine covering material. There are two types of half bindings, the first with the strip covering the foredge, or the more old-fashioned diagonal corners. I'm going to do the half binding with the diagonal corners. I think this is the more difficult version, and thus if you can do this, you can do the others. And I know what you're thinking, I've forgotten something, but I haven't. I'll talk about it in a separate video, and the other thing too. The question left unanswered is exactly how wide to make the spine cloth and corners. This has varied with fashion, and adjusting away from the norms is a way of making a creative statement. But I'm going to stick with the standard convention of being a quarter of the width of the book from the outside of the spine to the foredge. I use a square to find the outside of the spine and measure to the foredge. I divide this by 4 and then add 3 millimeters. The board paper covers the spine cloth by 3 millimeters and thus the additional 3 mil. I transfer this measurement back onto the book at one spot, and then I adjust a pair of dividers to the width from the edge of the board and transfer it to the head and tail and draw a line. I do the same for the other board. The quarter width is then used to measure in along the diagonal from the corners, again with the additional 3 millimeters. This time I set the dividers to the quarter width plus 3, which is 42 millimeters in my case, and drawing lines with a square, I measure and mark up the corners. Now the boards are marked up, I need to find 3 widths: the width of the spine cloth, the width of the spine stiffener, and the distance between the boards. I'll make a spacer the width of between the boards, which I'll use when making the case. To measure these 3 dimensions, I put the boards into position with the squares adjusted, and then I tightly wrap a strip of paper around the spine of the book. I place it so the edge I'll mark on goes over the tapes, as the book is slightly wider there. I then mark the paper where the spine cloth will go, at the edge of the boards, and on the shoulders of the book. The sharper your shoulders, the smaller the gap between the boards and the shoulders will be. The only problem with this is that the spine cloth will have to go over the spine stiffener, which wasn't in place when the measurement was made. The easiest way to fix this is to add a small amount as an adjustment. For a 300 GSM or 10-point card spine stiffener, for an average sized book, an additional 2 millimeters or just over a 1/16 of an inch works well. I add this on the piece of paper for the spine cloth and spacer, but not the spine stiffener. The first piece I'll cut is the spine stiffener. I'll use 300 GSM card, which is 10-point in the US. It's very important the grain direction is head to tail. I'll transfer the measurements directly from the strip of paper, and I'll cut it to the height of the boards. Then I cut the spacer for between the boards. Any scrap piece of board that's a bit shorter than the book will work. The length's not important, except it shouldn't be too short. Finally, there's the spine cloth. I lost most of my book cloth in the flood. It's expensive to stock in bulk in a wide range of cloths and colours. It took me years to build up my stock, and I haven't worked out where to store new cloth. I can't store large quantities at the house again, but a small piece of blue cloth did survive. It's a bit worse for wear and has been rolled up tight and then flattened. This is going to cause me problems later on. I'll cut it to width, and the height needs to be about 10 centimetres or a few inches higher than the book. It'll get trimmed once attached to the boards. The last job I'll do today is cut the corner pieces. It's common for bookbinders to keep templates for different sized corners. I recommend you make a template for cutting your corners and put it somewhere safe, and after a while you'll have a collection of templates for the different sized books you make. This book is going to have 15mm turn-ins, where the turn-in is the material that wraps around the board to the inside. I'll trim the turn-ins once attached, so they should be cut oversize. Maybe a template the size of the corner plus 20mm in each direction. I'll run 4 corners along a straight edge of the cloth and cut them out. Once I've cut the squares, I ignore the pencil marks and just cut corner to corner. In the next video, I'll assemble the case, and I promise I'll finish the book in the fifth part. As always, I really appreciate you hitting the big thumbs up button. If you're able and want to, you can support the making of more videos like this through Patreon or with a one-off contribution, and the details are in the description below. If you want to be notified of my future videos, please hit the subscribe button and select the notification bell. Until next time, cheerio.